the undisputed lightweight champion of the world. There are no other belts because you're the undisputed lightweight champion of the world. But you've had a hard time making 135 the last couple of years.
As we were told from the start, you cannot be the undisputed champion if you're a franchise champion, right? So therefore, is Teofimo Lopez the undisputed champion? But the fact is, the truth is, whilst he should be recognised as an undisputed champion, he is not an undisputed champion. He can't be the undisputed champion. Let me tell you why. Because the other governing bodies will not recognise the franchise championship as a world championship. Wow. Right?
How did you choose Lomachenko? Because
I did not choose him. He requested, Canelo requested. So we sent out a vote and we analyzed his history.
Ooh, Canelo and Lomachenko requested?
Absolutely. Ooh. The franchise is not a belt, it's not a championship, it's a designation given to elite, unique fighters.
Another reason is he carefully selected opponents, knew when and where and when and who to fight, and basically changed the paradigm in boxing. I'll translate. He flipped the script. He didn't do what everyone wanted him to do. He was the one dictating what he was going to do.
You account for that. Like I said before, I'm the black sheep of boxing. I'm fighting against the odds. But with prayers and God behind me, can't nothing stop me.
What odds are you talking about?
I'm saying, I feel like everybody is against Floyd Mayweather, but you gotta get respect where respect is due. I'm one of the best out there, pound for pound, and I prove myself over and over again. Floyd Mayweather's not ducking or dodging any opponent out there. I'm willing to fight whoever, whenever.
To challenge some of the 135 pounders.
Well, I would like to fight President Sima. Hopefully, we can meet at 128, or he can come up to 130. We can fight, or I can fight the winner of
Prince Nassim.
It was hard getting down, to 130 pounds, but I got there. I'm looking forward to moving up to 135, fighting Paul Spadafore, Jose Castillo, and hopefully moving to 140 and fighting Constantine.
Fight a Stevie Johnston or a Juan Lezcano?
Anything is possible. Like I said, I love to fight Stevie Johnson. I love to fight Juan Lezcano. But like I said, I'm looking forward to the bigger paydays, to the bigger fighters out there. Like I said before, I want to fight big fights, and I got to give thanks to all to God and my family, Team Mayweather. Without him, Floyd Mayweather wouldn't be where he's at today.
They're in the lightweight division still, like Lezcano and Casamayor and possibly Freitas, maybe some others. Why wouldn't you want to clean that up before you moved up in weight?
Well, I actually fight these guys in the past. I've been trying to get Lezcano, Casamayor, Freitas in the past. These guys didn't want to fight me, so I'm finna move up to bigger and better things. I'm looking forward to fighting Arturo Gatti next. That's a big pay-per-view fight for me, and that's what I'm looking forward to doing. I would love to fight Constantine, Arturo Gatti, the best out there. And I hear that Shane Mosley is coming down to 147. I hear Oscar De La Hoya is coming down to 147. For Floyd Mayweather is willing to go to 147 and fight Shane Mosley or fight Oscar De La Hoya.
So Max Kellerman came out, and he was pretty much encouraging Teofimo Lopez to avoid Haney and Tank. Max Hypocrisy Kellerman is basically encouraging Lopez to avoid Devin Haney, act like a businessman, and with that same breath, he criticized Floyd Mayweather, lying on his name, claiming Floyd was a businessman the way he was pursuing his career when he was Pretty Boy. So let's talk about it, because Max Hypocrisy Kellerman falsely criticized Floyd for being a businessman. So let's talk about it. As Pretty Boy Floyd Mayweather, the question wasn't who is Floyd Mayweather is willing to fight next. The question was, who is willing to fight the boogeyman Pretty Boy Floyd? He had everybody shook. So for Max Kellerman to lie on Pretty Boy name lets you know his agenda that he's coming with. Lying to the fans on national TV. So the money version, Money Mayweather fought Sugar Shane Mosley. First of all, let's start it off with this, just to debunk everything Max Kellerman had to say, because let's put things in perspective. Pretty Boy obviously was the boogeyman. The people was avoiding him. Sugar Shane, he said he blamed the fight not happening on his teeth because he had to get his teeth replaced, so on and so forth.
A fight in November, I don't know if I'll be able to properly train in November. Well, I don't know. Like I said, as I'm sitting here, my tooth is a little loose right now. I'm trying to figure out if I gotta go to the dentist and give me some dentures in a second.
So you can't think ahead to Monday.
So I can't think ahead. I've been feeling my tooth right now. I feel like it's coming out. It looks like the thug is coming out, so I got to see what's going on, you know?
All right, thank you very much.
Oscar De La Hoya avoided him. Then also Ricky Hatton himself avoided Pretty Boy. It wasn't until Floyd Mayweather became Money May, and he was making so much money that he became the draw, so they had to see him. Now, as Pretty Boy, Floyd Mayweather was making a guarantee of 10 million, 12 million sometimes, and he was still being avoided. He was still being the boogeyman at that time because he was so good that people didn't want no part of Floyd. Then as Money May, he became the draw so much that it was worth that ass beating that you're going to receive is okay. The point that I'm trying to point out is that as Money May, that's a different stage. Floyd Mayweather was drawing so much attention and so much revenue that it was worth the risk. The award outweighs the risk. Losing to Floyd made you more popular. Your next payday after losing was more than it would have been if you didn't lose to Floyd. So it was worth the risk. Off the bat, Floyd Mayweather came off retirement after he beat Marquez in more of a dominant fashion than Pacquiao ever did. He tried to fight Pacquiao. Pacquiao turned it down because of the drug test. So Pacquiao avoided Floyd Mayweather because he blamed it on a drug test. Facts over emotion, even Freddie Roach admitted that it was Pacquiao and his team that turned down the Floyd Mayweather fight on more than one occasion. So it was a Pacquiao who avoided Floyd Mayweather in his prime, either because he knew Floyd Mayweather was too good or he was on something.
Pacquiao is the man that Mayweather didn't fight rather than Pacquiao didn't get the Mayweather.
I don't think it'll come across that way. I think people will say, why didn't they fight each other? And blame both guys, to be honest with you, because the first negotiation we were against the blood test, and it was kind of our fault that the first time it didn't work. And then we came.
Moving forward, he went to the next best thing, Sugar Shane Mosley, who knocked out Margarito. So he was like, you know what? Margarito got knocked out by Sugar Shane. People were saying Floyd Mayweather ducking Sugar Shane now. So Floyd Mayweather fought him because he came and disrespected Floyd right after the fight. He fought Ortiz right after he beat Berto, undefeated version. He fought Canelo Alvarez after he unified with Trout. He was the unified champion, undefeated. He fought Manny Pacquiao when Pacquiao finally was willing to fight him. He fought Maidana twice. He fought Cotto after he beat Margarito. So Floyd Mayweather never dodged any opponent. Kenny Bayless interviews, you guys could go back and watch. Every time Kenny Bayless pointed out a fighter, Floyd Mayweather went and fought that guy. So maximum hypocrisy trying to paint the narrative Floyd Mayweather was a businessman, but that's a clear lie because Floyd Mayweather beat all his favorite fighters. But ironically enough, with that same breath he criticizing Floyd, Max Kellerman is encouraging Teo to avoid Haney. He did not even mention Haney at any point during that interview with Teo, in which he stated, Teo, you're the undisputed champion. There's no other champion, which is a clear lie. He called Teo the super champion. There's no other champion when he knows that Lomachenko or Nomachenko requested a witness protection belt. He purchased a belt that's equivalent to that belt you buy from Walmart in order to keep your pants up, a French fries belt. He knows, Max Kellerman knows that as much as I do. He knows that Lomachenko purchased the belt in order to avoid Devin Haney. In other words, he was stripped of his belt, but bought a belt called the French fries belt in order to save face, right? So he knows the real champion is the WBC, Devin Haney, but he lied on national TV to the whole world when BoxRec says otherwise, when Wikipedia says otherwise, when even ESPN says otherwise. They all have WBC champion as Devin Haney. BoxRec, you could go and check. They have it listed. Teo was fighting Lomachenko for the WBA, WBO, IBF titles, and the WBC champion is still Devin Haney. So that's just to prove that Max Kellerman lied on national TV. So there's nothing that he wouldn't do. But it's ironic to me that Max Kellerman is always using Floyd Mayweather's name when he was interviewing Gervonta. But he wouldn't criticize the fighters that's actually ducking, like Canelo and Gennady Golovkin, who avoided Andre Ward. Gennady Golovkin and Canelo Alvarez, who avoided and still avoiding Charlo and Andre to this day. I find it ironic that he won't criticize those guys who's actually ducking. Forget talking about being a businessman. They pretty much been ducking for the past 5 years or 6 years. But he'd rather talk about a guy who was the most feared, that fought everybody, Floyd, right? So, like I said, with the same breath, he criticizing Floyd of being a businessman, supposedly. He telling and he encouraging Teo to behave like a businessman, to avoid Devin Haney, to not fight Devin Haney for Undisputed when Tio has actually wanted to fight Devin Haney. Tio already said right after the Lomachenko fight, I don't think these guys want to fight me, but if they want to fight me, they're more than welcome to. They're going to have the same faith as Lomachenko. He dissed Devin Haney, calling him email champion, but Tio's not going to be undisputed with an email title because it was Tio who requested for the French fries belt. He requested that belt from the WBC if he beats Lomachenko through email. So who is really the email champion here in this conversation? But at least Tio, on his end, he's not to blame for this made-up title that Canelo was the pioneer for. He's not to blame for what Lomachenko did. However, he could right Lomachenko wrongs by actually fighting Devin Haney. So Tio is not to blame. He actually wants to fight Devin Haney. He called out Devin Haney when the commentators, Tessitore, never brought up Devin Haney. He the one that voluntarily brought up Devin Haney. He the one that said he willing to fight Devin Haney. And Max Kellerman and Tessitore and all these guys that work for ESPN and old media, they encouraging Tio, telling him, whispering to his ear, hey, don't fight Devin Haney right now. But it don't make no logical sense for Max Kellerman and ESPN to stay criticizing Floyd Mayweather. With the same breath, they tell Tio to act like a businessman and avoid the Devin Haney of the world, the Tank Davis of the world, when those are mega fights. That logically makes no sense. So what it all comes down to, the conclusion of all of this, is that Max Hypocrisy Kellerman, he want the hopeless fighters to move like a businessman and cherry pick without calling them out for it. But for the coincidentalist fighters, he want them to fight the best while they being the most feared, but turn around and call them cherry picking, lying to the public. That's the words of Max Hypocrisy Kellerman. That's his agenda, basically. If you're going to criticize Floyd Mayweather, then I want you to criticize every single fighter in the game, because none of them did what Floyd Mayweather did and came even close. It makes no logical sense for a guy who cherry-picked that, got that far, fought 23 world champions. He fought so many fighters on the pound-for-pound list, from Corrales to Castillo to Hernandez to Manny Pacquiao, Sugar Shane Mosley to Oscar De La Hoya, and the list goes on and on. Cotto, Canelo Alvarez. It makes no sense for you to criticize Floyd, who fought everybody, and not criticize every single fighter in the game. Max Hypocrisy Kellerman want to give Tyson Fury credit for fighting the best when he fought Tom Schwartz and Wallen, two cherry picks, instead of fighting Dillian White when he was ordered by the WBC and other fighters that was calling him out, like Ortiz, Luis Ortiz, and the list goes on and on. He don't want to call out Tyson Fury for cherry picking. He don't want to call out Canelo for cherry picking, avoiding Charlo and Andre. He don't want to call out Gennady Golovkin for avoiding Lara, Andre Ward, Charlo, Andre, Saunders. He don't want to call out these guys, but he rather lie and criticize Floyd. One of my favorite Floyd Mayweather quotes: I'd rather be hated for telling the truth than be loved for telling a lie. But Max Kellerman, he'd rather be loved for telling a lie than be hated for telling the truth. That's why he does what he does on ESPN whenever he's on his Max Hypocrisy show, because like I said, he encouraging the young bull Tio who want to fight everybody. He's telling him basically, hey, listen, you need to behave like a businessman. I wish Tio told him, like, hold on, man. You stay telling me to avoid these cats, but you criticizing Floyd. I don't want to give you no space for you to criticize me in the future, so I want to fight everybody. I wish Tio would have told him something like that. So for Max Hypocrisy Kellerman to criticize Floyd Mayweather while praising Canelo and Gennady Golovkin, claiming that they fight the best, it exposes his whole agenda. Obviously, ESPN, they erased Lomachenko law, so there's nothing they wouldn't do.
Hold it, you're not that pretty. I'm a bad man. Wait. I still got the world. I still got the world. I still got the world.
I bear witness, there's only one God, Allah, and Muhammad is his final messenger. That's what I said, Larry, on the Bungle fight. Thanking you.
They call me the problem, but you could call me the can man, because anybody can get it. Africans, Americans, Dominicans, Mexicans, anybody can get it.